Hello everyone. This video is going to cover the bend SOP in Houdini. Here in the scene we have some pipes and we're going to take a look at how we can bend one of these into shape. So let's get started. So here I have this tube. If I hit the W key, I can see I have enough resolution in my mesh so that when I bend it, it's not going to be ugly and jaggy. So make sure that you have enough resolution in your geometry, otherwise you're probably going to get something ugly. Next, we did some extrusions for some pipe details, and then we did some bevels so that we have some nice hard edges, and we are ready to bend this pipe. So let's hit the tab key and type bend, and now we're prompted to select our geometry. So I'm going to hit the W key as a force of habit so that I make sure I grab everything front and back. I'm going to hit the enter key and then spacebar 3, and I'm just going to eyeball it somewhere at the bottom in the middle of the pipe, and the same for the top. And this is just to set the start and end deformation, but you don't have to super stress about anything because we can always switch the direction of that afterwards. So here we have this bounding box around our mesh, which is the capture region, and that's just to show us everything inside this box is going to be bent or bendable. So now we see a bit of offset in this bounding box. It's not fitting exactly super tight around our mesh, and we want to have it as tight as possible so that the capture deformation is happening uniformly to our mesh and not kind of offset to one side or the top is a little bit longer. We want it to be as shrunk wrap around our mesh as possible, and we can do that by clicking on the right mouse button and using this fit capture region to selection. That basically just shrink wraps the capture region around our mesh. So you can click on this, or you can read any of these instructions down below, which is the same thing as in the right mouse button, but with hotkeys. So way faster with hotkeys. Highly recommend. All right, so now that we have everything fitting around the mesh as tightly as possible, we are ready to jump back to our 3D perspective view and start bending things. So we can just grab the handle and move it around, and we're bending our geometry. Earlier, I was saying that we don't really have to stress about deciding on the start and end of the capture region. We can always just hit the M key to flip the direction of our capture region. So it's on the bottom now, but I want it back on the top. Next, we can also cycle through the capture axis by hitting the B key. And you can notice the capture region is switching based on the axis that it's cycling through. So this entirely depends on the type of mesh you have and the result that you're after. So for this pipe, we want it to be kind of on this axis. In addition to the bend handle, we also have twist, and if we switch to wireframe, you can see that it is twisting. Maybe not the most optimal example to use, but that is the twist handle. So we're not going to use that for this. So I'm going to turn it back off. Next is the capture handle, which is the G key. And this one indicates the capture length. If you pay attention to this, you can see the values changing. And this is just kind of the extent of the bend that is influencing our mesh. So we can also position this using the kind of translate handles down here, and we can also just slide this up and down. After that, we also have length scale, and this, if I move this, let me just increment snap this by holding down the control and just moving it. You can see that it's snapping by increments of 90, 45 degrees and 90s. So if I move this, you can see that it's stretching, and if I enable preserve volume, you can see that it's either bulging or thinning. And to better show this, I'm just going to bring it in a bit, and it's getting slightly cluttered here, so I'm going to turn off the capture handle by hitting the G key, and also this capture region box. So that's the F key. And again, all of these options are written down here or accessible in the right mouse button menu. And now I'm going to turn on the taper. So you can see this is another set of handles. And if you want to actually enlarge or shrink your handle size, you can hit the / or asterisk to just bring this smaller or bigger. So it's entirely up to you. I'm just enlarging it so that it's easier to grab. So here with these taper handles, you can use this to pull it out and make it bulge. And then at the end, you can do the same as well. And we also have this option to enable ramp. So that's going to give us some specific controls where we can kind of draw like the profile shape of our taper shape that we want to get. Don't forget that if you shift select these points, you can switch the interpolation method. So here we have linear. If you want something more smooth, then you can use the Bezier. And you can also move this handle to slide along the length of your band spine and also take advantage of these new options that are actually in all the ramps across Houdini. So you can reverse the ramp shape. You can also have the inverse, the complement. You can also choose from any of these ready-made preset ramp shapes for your profiles, and these are handy in not only this but also for like beveling, for example, so you don't have to make them from scratch each time. There's also like a global scale with this value. I don't want any of these, but I'm just showing the options that you have at your disposal when you are enabling ramps. So let me turn off this taper, and I'm also going to turn off the length scale. So now we're back to kind of like our default thing. If you were wondering how to capture partial region, you can just click on this. So it'll kind of like reset your mesh to its initial position. I'm going to go back to the front view and I'm going to select just half of it and hit the enter key. And here you can see that it's a little messed up because it didn't update the capture region to just conform around the selection that we just made. So I'm going to hit the N key, and now you can see that it's fit around the region that we chose. So it's not affecting anything else down here. It's just bending at the top. We can also do some cool things using the capture options here. So if you adjust stuff like capture length and change the capture direction and origin settings, you can get something neat like this. So I'm just going to Martha Stewart this. I'm going to mute this. Then I'm going to turn to this guy. And here it's super busy because I have the capture handle plus the capture region box, and then probably also plus the bend handle. So I'm going to turn off the capture region because I don't need to see that. So with the F key, and you can see that my capture length is adjusted. Probably also my bend value is also adjusted, and a number of these. So you can adjust these things in the viewport and just use the ladder to slowly adjust the values, and then you can assess what's happening in the viewport this way. And you want to do some animation of your pipe or geometry. The bend sub is a neat way to control this, because otherwise, if you had to make this by hand, it would be rather time consuming. And if you wanted to adjust anything afterwards, like some small details, or you wanted to add bevels to these edges, you can always just add them back up top here and then have the bend handle update and recapture the new parts, but have all this deformation that you prepared and apply it to the new mesh, which is pretty neat, I think. So that is the bend sub in Houdini. Thanks for watching.